All right, so I know you didn't hire me just to stare at your beautiful water feature. Why am I here?
You're here to consult with us about our palm trees.
All right.
We hope to save them. We don't know what's wrong with them. We don't know how to take care of them.
Scott, step into the beautiful light where your beautiful wife Beth was shining. Turn this way a little bit. Now everyone gets to see how pretty you are too. That's Scott. That's Beth, and I am out here in Sacramento, and we have some questions about canary palms, which is why I'm here today, where I'm going to answer all of them and probably give you more information you ever wanted to know about these trees. And in addition to that, I'm looking around. If you hire me for a consult, this is what the video is all about. If you hire me for a consult, I won't be able to help myself but to give you all kinds of advice on all kinds of ways to augment your yard, which in this case is huge potential because this yard is so bitchin' to begin with. And so tell me your hopes, concerns about these trees.
Well, we know that they are about 40 years old.
Okay.
And the original owners at one point cut them down. So when we bought the house, they were, I don't know, maybe 6 feet tall, really short. So they've grown this much in 24 years. And we've been pruning them ourselves.
All right. Yeah, that's highly commendable. I'll have to send you the video of Gary versus Palm Thorn that ended up in the ER.
We saw that.
Oh, you saw?
With it getting cut out of your hand.
Yeah. Maybe I'll link that to this video.
My next door neighbor's an ER doc, and he had to come consult with me once.
Oh, he did.
I got a there in the shoulder.
So you know, you're a fellow warrior.
Yes,
all right, you've been there, done that. Well, that's highly commendable. You got a studly husband, I gotta say. Not many husbands that get up there and do this kind of thing, put up with the pain like that. So I told my wife's like, oh, let's get a couple canary palms from our house. I'm like, honey, you never trim these things. You have no idea what we're getting into. But no, they are the most beautiful palm I think you can plant in all of Northern California. Especially when they're trimmed up really nice. These are, we can make these things look, well.
Is it called skinning or husking?
We just call it trimming.
Okay.
But you can probably call it either one. Well, let me tell you about the structure of these trees. So, you have the inner trunk, which is deeper in here. This is the petiole that holds on the fronds. Each frond holds on to one of these things. And then if you really trim them uniformly, you'll notice that they come out in a swirl pattern. So the plant grows, I think, like this as it grows up. That would be the only thing you can explain it. It's almost like a corkscrew. Here's one line. Here's another line. You can really see them here. Here's another line down below. If you trim these nice and uniformly, you'll see that pattern more. Now, the important thing here is to not trim too deep if you do trim. This is what I call natural abscission, whereby these things are breaking off, on their own, just like that. And you get this material right here. It's just a common break point. Now, the really old trees, this will all fall off in time. Every one of my videos, there's a blower. So it's always the same. It's always the same. If you're wondering, it's always a blower. So get used to it. But and so the cool thing about natural abscission is you get this really cool kind of rough bark look. And here, we'll even take more off up here if I climb up here. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Two hands I could definitely do. Right here. And these things will come right off. So wide. But anyway, this stuff comes off real naturally. And over time, more of this stuff will flake off. This is the skin of the trunk of the tree. So really old trees that have natural abscission for many years have a really beautiful pattern on the trunk, real kind of unique and artistic. The only way to get around, the only other alternative is take a chainsaw and trim all this off uniformly. But when you do that, I call it the Vegas slick look. It's kind of like, you either get the rough hewn look, the natural look, the abscission look, or you get the Vegas look. And there's argument for both. The Vegas look would be this beautiful cylindrical thing, all the patterns on it. You'll see beautiful, perfect pineapple on the top. And then the natural abscission is kind of the old world look, the more natural look. And I never really thought much about it until I was hired by a Montecito vintage hotel in Southern California to find them big canary palms that had the natural abscission look. Because they wanted, because back in the day, they didn't have chainsaws, and they could just cut these things, and then the rest of it would fall off naturally, and you have this natural pattern over time. And so they needed really big old trees, vintage trees that were never chainsawed, because they wanted that real, naturalistic look to them. And I ultimately found them some trees. But after I started to think about what they were asking for, I started really appreciating the sort of, the rough-hewn, natural abscission look that you can get like this. And these trees are kind of at the point now where they're just starting to show that off. You can pull off all this stuff. At the top, you do need to still create the pineapple to get rid of all the junk in the seeds. And but that doesn't hurt. That doesn't stop the natural abscission look. The natural abscission, these things will attach to a main core trunk in here, about another 3 inches deep. When you trim all this off, you're still leaving some of this material on. If you're gonna slick trim these trees, you don't want to take your chainsaw in too deep and get into the permanent part of the trunk. That'll be a permanent scar on the tree. So you have to be really careful, that you don't cross that fine line. But I kind of like this look here, where you just come up, knock all this stuff off as much as you can. You can even take a shovel and or you karate chop, boom, boom, just like that. Scott wants to impress Beth. He's going to come out here like, yeah, look at me, baby. How about that? So, yeah, so there's two choices here. Slick with the chainsaw or just kind of break it off with the shovel as best you can. And so it's just a matter of preference and taste. Okay, now the pineapple on top, you got to get up there where these things stop falling off. They're going to be green. They're going to be more attached to the trunk. That's where you got to create your pineapple. You always want to cut off the thorns of the tree. Oh, you want to go horizontal.
Keep it horizontal. Stay horizontal.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. So you also want to cut off all the seed pods when you can. What we have here is a female tree on the left, signified by the orange up in the tree, flowers, and the one over here is a male. So we have a happy male and female here, living a beautiful romantic relationship together. And these trees are a bit yellow. They probably need some fertilizer, but something else that happens to them over the winter time is they get so cold that they can't really take up nutrients, even if there is nutrients in the ground during the colder months. But that should turn green again, especially if you fertilize once it starts warming up. Now, the most important thing to know about these trees is that there's this nasty, nasty disease called fusarium out there. All right, it's a fungus, and it primarily gets this fungus needs to get into the vascular system of the plant. The vascular system is the water transmission system throughout the plant, and it's binary. It goes both ways, roots up, everything translocates everywhere eventually, just like our bloodstream. And like our bloodstream, and if you can imagine AIDS and how AIDS works, it gets introduced into your blood, it translocates everywhere, and eventually, the problems begin. So, and just like AIDS, if this gets introduced in the tree, you won't know it right away because it's not translocated everywhere. It has to build up in the system. And the way this fungus gets put into this tree, primarily, people go around neighborhoods and they trim tree to tree to tree to tree. All it takes is one infected tree, one chainsaw to get infected, and they move it around to everybody. So the most important thing to know is that if you do have this tree trimmed by someone else, you should buy your own saw and trim it. And the best saw to use, and this is not a political statement, it's just reality, is the Echo 310 chainsaw that has been recently banned by Gavin Newsom, as with all other gas-powered garden equipment in the state of California. But living so close to Reno, you can just drive up to Reno, hit some slots, go buy a bunch of these chainsaws, come back, sell them on the black market down here, make a bunch of money, keep one for yourself, and then go up and trim the tree. Just don't tell Gavin, okay? But it's the best saw to use. It's like a $250 saw. It used to be at $199 before inflation, but like 4 years ago it's $199. Now it's $250. But anyway, you go up and get one of those saws, and if anybody comes here to trim your tree, have them trim with that saw only. And if they're going to wear spikes going up the tree, which I generally don't recommend, they want to bleach those spikes really well, anything that's going to impregnate into the tree. And a tree like this having spikes is probably no big deal because the spikes will be mostly in the outer bark, which is expendable. If the tree was slick trimmed, you would never want to spike it because you're so close to the core of the tree. Okay, so but other trees like queen palms, Mexican fan palms, stuff like that, you don't want to spike the trees if you can avoid it. Okay, so that's the fusarium deal. That's what you need to know about. And we also sell palm fertilizer for these trees specific, so we can give you that.
So you don't see any evidence of the fusarium up there?
No, they're looking good. I think just a little bit of brown on the tips is just natural dry out, natural desiccation of older fronds. And how much do you water them? Well, yeah, if you don't, then if you water them more, they look better. I think they just kind of look to me like they're just like slightly underwater, which is fine, but it gives them a little bit of a tingy look. They don't grow as fast.
They get water from all the water we do with the plants and the photinia around here, but nothing specific for them.
There's a drip system.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. They're established enough. But I mean, if you want them really, really lush looking, you water the heck out of them, but that causes them to grow faster, which causes more material, which causes more trimming, which causes more thorns and more ER visits. So it's like everything in life.
It's a balance.
You get something, but you give something up. So anyway, I just let them go the way they're going. Maybe give them a little bit of fertilizer. Maybe a couple deep soaks in summertime with the hose. Good enough. And then now with Fusarium, there's a very distinct look of dried out foliage that you'll see. It starts from the bottom and it progresses and eventually kills the tree. It kills the tree. It prevents the tree from taking up moisture and utilizing moisture, so it dehydrates the tree to death. So if you're in a really cool, foggy area where there's hardly any evaporative stress, the tree dies very slowly. If you're in a place where it's really hot and really dry, we're in Sacramento, it's pretty hot and dry, it would be a lot faster of a process. So these trees don't have that right now, from what I can tell. The other big problem with this tree just came up from Mexico, South American palm beetle. This thing's horrible. It's killing all the trees down in San Diego. It's a beetle that flies from tree to tree. The beetle will bore into the tree. It'll have its babies, and then the little larvae will eat the heart out, and then they'll fly off to another tree. So that disease, that bug is moving up very slowly. I'm hoping it doesn't leapfrog up here or get blown by a blower here, which could happen. But right now, it's not here. When it gets here, you'll hear about it. You'll start seeing trees die. Fusarium kills the trees from the bottom up. The palm beetle kills the trees from the top down. They basically eat the heart out, so all the new fronds that come out just collapse, and it causes what looks to be like a big mushroom of dead foliage, and it's horrible. However, you can avoid that. Like once it gets here, and you know it's here, you don't want to waste your money until then. You can hire these tree guys to come out and 3 times a year shoot up a little bit of pesticide in the tree. You don't like to use pesticide, but if you want to keep your palm, when those beetles get here, it's probably the only way to do it. Shoot up 3 times a year, costs like, I don't know, $250 every time, $300. That's just the cost of having the trees at that point. And then the trees will be fine. And then all the other trees in the neighborhood will die, and they'll say, how come your trees are alive? You say, well, we're spraying our trees. And they're like, I wish I knew about that. You said you should have watched Gary's videos. So that's the story of the canary palm. So the next video, friends, is going to be all about how Gary got paid to come out and give advice on the canary palms, and then gave a free garden consultation to make this garden even greater than it is today.
So one clarifying question.
Oh, here we go. Here come the questions.
Come here. The fact that it used to look like this all the way up, we had a spot where it started looking like this, and then all of it started falling out. That's natural?
That's natural.
Okay, so this is what you would expect eventually over time versus this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially when you karate chop. Like that.
That's effective.
Yeah. The more you karate chop, the more it'll look like this.
So we thought
That's
maybe
natural.
water had gotten in and started to mold or anything. It's just
No, that's
natural.
fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. Yeah. And you see the mold. You can see mold up in there. That's just natural. It's a medium. All kinds of stuff will grow on this thing, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt it.
Have you ever run into some good squirrel stories when you're up there trimming?
Squirrel stories. I had one run down my back one time when I was trimming. I used to trim these trees, but not anymore. Yeah, here it comes. Here comes
Right
the blower. Yeah. Well, I also had. Well, I have a good rat story. Another one went down my back. Yeah, I'll cut that thing. The great thing about these trees too is they're wonderful habitat for owls, and so you'll often get owls living up there. So that's kind of a fun thing. And
We get a screech owl every now and then.
Now let me ask. So you saw a lot of Scott, but I think it'd be prettier to see Beth. There she is. Any questions, Beth?
Yes.
You should have seen the hug that Beth gave me the moment I walked in here.
Celebrity in the house.
I was like, wow, I made it. I'm sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying?
We're so honored to have you here. So, should we cut away all that dead stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you want to do is, well, you probably want to hire it at this point. I wouldn't sacrifice Scott any longer.
No.
I mean, if you value Scott at all,
We're in
you
the
should
hiring phase.
you should get to the hiring stage. It's really commendable. Most people don't last that long going up that high with those thorns. No, you want to get up there. All that hairy stuff, you can kind of pull off by hand or with a shovel or even like a rake. Like a hard rake will just kind of pull that stuff off and get as much off as you can. Then pull those brown pieces off. You know, maybe karate chop style might be a little too high for that, but you can get ropes on them, yank them down.
Okay.
Or the guys that'll be working here, they'll know how to do that. Just tell them you want that stuff cleaned up, but tell them you don't want the tree chainsawed up. You just want all that stuff pulled off.
Okay.
Once you get up there, you won't be able to pull it off. It's too young. So then they'll have to take their chainsaw and make their nice pineapple up there where the stuff won't pull off by hand. And then they have to somehow climb up into the canopy, which is no fun at all, and trim out as much of the seed pods as possible. Now, because this is a female, look.
The ones that are still alive, the yellow ones?
Yeah, well, even all of them, really. I mean, the reason you want to cut off all the flowers is otherwise you end up with a whole bunch of baby canary. You had a lot of canary palms coming up?
Well, some
Yeah.
kind of palm.
Look, that's what these are here. So if you allow the palm to seed, and it's a female, you will get a lot of these baby canary palms, which you can pull up and give to your friends and family, and they can then end up going to the yard as well. So trying to trim the trees. But that's the wonderful thing about the male trees is that they don't drop any seeds, so you don't get any babies underneath. A lot of the architects specify males for that purpose only, not to be sexists. But yeah, so it's pretty important to try to get as many of those seeds as possible. Just for the only, some people like the cool thing about the females though, they're prettier. You agree, Scott?
I do.
That's what I think. Yeah, I think it's kind of universal. I think everyone agrees. But you'll notice on the female trees you have the beautiful orange, it's gorgeous, and then in the male you just have an ugly brown in there, and that's just it. The male just makes pollen. The female structure is for the seeds, and the orange part holds the seeds. So, so for that reason, you could just leave the orange ones. They're really hard to take out anyway. They're so high up. But I would take out all of the brown ones. The other reason you want to take out anything brown on these trees is that palm trees have been deemed fire hazardous, which is stupid because they're only fire hazard if you don't trim them. The most fire safe tree there is a palm tree well trimmed. Because you can imagine they get these trunks and it's pretty hard to get fire up into the tree. Now, as long as the dead material is taken off the bottom of the tree regularly, the green part is extremely hard to ignite. And so don't believe people when they say they're fire hazardous. But they are the most fire hazardous tree if never trimmed, and they are the most fire safe tree if regularly trimmed. So they have a contrast in that respect. But yeah, all the dead material is pretty flammable. That's another reason to get it out of there. And you do want to trim it. We usually trim it about the horizontal level. These are a little bit past that as far as the foliage goes. And so there's a lot hanging down over there you probably want to take off. And
Is the pineapple just for looks, or is it a structural
it's
benefit,
sort of a structural benefit. Yeah, and it does kind of support the stuff above it a little bit to a certain extent.
Is that an annual trim?
It's just
Every other?
I'd say at least every 3 years.
Okay.
I mean, if you're like a Beverly Hills hotel, it's 3 times a year. If you're my house, like once every 6 years. You know, it's kind of like as often as I shave. You know, so yeah. So as long as you can put up with it, you're not in a very high fire hazardous area here. But if you're in a fire hazardous area, you really want to be cognizant about getting all that material out of there as often as you can. The less material you have to burn, the better off you are.
I love how comfortable our birds are with you around.
I know. Look at that. Yeah, they're not scared of me at all. Yeah, most animals are scared of me. I don't know why.
Humans.
You know, it's like they haven't seen this kind of animal before. Like, is he a human? I don't know. Is he a Bigfoot? Yeah. All right. Well, what do you say we hop on to the design phase?
Absolutely.
Any more questions about the trees?
Great.
I cover it?
No, I think we're good.
All right. All exhaustive
I'm excited that
information.
they're not diseased.
Yeah, absolutely.
Relieved. We love them.
I'm going to focus in on the prettier one for the ending shot, the female.